particularly a deck that's packing 4 copies of Wild Slash, 4 copies of Lightning Strike. It's going to be hard for Harlan to develop much of a board. And if that's the case, we're just looking at 3-mana deal 4 damage, and with Harlan being the control deck in the matchup, that's not where he wants to be.
What's fun here is the gentleman on the left, Chuck Bowman. I played in the last round of Grand Prix Cleveland. He beat me. We were playing for money in the last round. He beat me with a very, very powerful Palace Siege in that limited format. But he's, every area has that kind of guy who's just been like around for a really long time. That you kind of see at PTQ's line. He's always making PTQ top 8s and things of that nature. That's that guy from Ohio.
Okay.
And pretty skilled guy who most people definitely won't know. But to see him at 10-3 does not surprise me very much at all. And he gave me a shellacking in the last round of Grand Prix Cleveland. He started things off with a Zergo Bell Striker. He's going to get in for 2 points of damage here. The follow-up might be a Dragon Fodder. It is. So Harlan knows what he's up against right away now. Now, 2 Temples not a bad start in most situations. There's going to be a Wild Slash to take care of the Zergo. There are the 2 Goblin tokens. So we're going to go Harlan's way. Mystic Monastery, was the draw. Flooded Strand is the land that Harlan will play. He's going to go down to 17. Get an island, and perhaps we'll have a Mantis Rider.
I believe Rabble Master was in his hand as well. Not the premier threat that you would want against a Tarka Red, but the nice benefit is Chuck is likely compelled to kill it, and then the token that you have left over can start blocking.
Yep. There comes the Goblin token. Chuck, no interest in blocking.
Round. Active player complete your turn. Proceed to 5 additional.
Chuck will take a look at his hand. He'll draw a card.
Time in round 4.
Mana Confluence, which means that Atarka's command is on now, and I believe he has 2 copies of that card in his hand.
Though I don't believe a way to kill the Rabble Master. It looks like his hand is Lightning Berserker, Zergo, and 2 copies of Atarka's command.
There's Berserker. It will be dashed. We're coming on in.
This is a nice looking attack here because it almost looks like a throw caution to the wind sort of attack. But if Harlan makes this block, if Chuck wants to, he has the option of just pumping the Lightning Berserker.
He's going to play Atarka's command instead. Get some damage across. And simply pass the turn by. That's a healthy amount of damage, don't get me wrong. And you also get that Rabble Master off the board too.
Yeah, it's still 7.
Yeah.
Even in the spot where Atarka command wasn't very good, it was still 7.
Yeah, Atarka's command is a silly magic card. In these sort of go wide strategies, when you have the tokens in red, it is a silly magic card. There's a Battlefield Forge. There's another Rabble Master. Here come Goblins. Chuck going to go down to 16. Bowman will draw. Another Berserker. We could see the same play again. Yep. In we go.
Although I believe Harlan picked up a Wild Slash last turn, which is great news for him.
Here's Darkest Command. Wild Slash going to take care of a token.
And Harlan here just playing defense.
Yep.
I know the instinct may have been, I want to preserve my Rabble Master here, but Harlan knows he's got a lot going on here with just the 2 tokens in play in terms of protecting himself from other damage, and he needs to preserve his life total at all costs.
That said, Harlan's life total is pretty low at this point.
And if you're going to just pick up another Rabble Master, well, then it's great.
Yep. There's Mystic Monastery. There is Rabble Master. Another Goblin. Beatdowns. 12-4. Take a draw. Lightning Strike's not bad. Looks like it's 12-5, excuse me. Zergo Lightning Strike in hand.
I kind of want to dash Zergo.
Yeah.
Because Harlan either trades Rabble Master for Zergo or is in lethal range next turn.
Looks like he's just going to hard cast Zergo, pass the turn back. Just curious, if you dash there, what do you attack with? Just Zergo or both?
Both.
Okay. Ooh, boy.
Because you want to get him into Lightning Strike range.
Yep. Jeskai Charm was the draw.
Really good nose.
Was a really good one there for Harlan. And we talked about this a little bit when we were talking about Harlan and the deck that he's playing this weekend, because we've seen him a couple of times on camera this weekend, and he's been near the top of the standings basically the entire weekend. And he has 4 Jeskai Charms in his deck, where that was a card that's been cut from most Jeskai decks at this point. And it sure looks good here.
It's a card that's not going to be very good in the matchup more often than not, and it requires Harlan to have a board to be doing much of anything, which is hard for him to do in the matchup because Chuck has so much removal. But in spots like this, it's awesome. I mean, it's Likely going to be way too much life gain for Chuck to be able to handle here.
It's funny, Magic goes through kind of these cycles in the format where Jeskai Charm, no doubt a very powerful card, just not perfect for Jeskai in some certain situations. So this weekend might be a great time to be playing it.
So looking back at that board the last turn, I'm not sure if Chuck can necessarily dash the Zergo because he may just die on the board on the way back. He also just might die if Harlan has anything. It may be one of the spots where you can only beat lands, but I think Chuck may be hard-pressed to beat anything in that spot anyway. I think that Harlan had exactly 12 coming across on the way back because he was going to make a 5th token with the Rabble Master and attack with those 5 tokens plus the Rabble Master. That's 12 points of damage. I suppose Chuck has the option of just dashing Zergo and leaving the token back on defense. In any event, Chuck's going to be hard-pressed to win that game, and certainly Jeskai Charm is making it not close at all.
Harlan Fear does win game number 1 against Chuck Bowman. Jeskai aggro up a game over at Tarka Red. We'll look at Bowman's sideboard first of 2 Goblin Rabble Master, 2 Twin Bolt, 4 Roast, 3 Eidolon of the Great Revel, a Destructive Revelry, a Hall of Triumph, a Scorching Sands, and a Magnetic Chasm.
So Hall of Triumph typically comes in red mirror matches. They're not quite. It's not quite a mirror match naturally, but it is good against removal and decks with similar blockers. I think the copies of Eidolon of the Great Revel are likely to come in at least with Charles on the play. I like the 2 copies of Twin Bolt in this matchup as well.
What do we see on the other side there for Harlan?
In a race, 3 copies of Disdainful Stroke, a Valorous Stance, 2 copies of Negate, a Glare of Heresy, 2 copies of Anger of the Gods, 2 Narset Transcendent, and then Hostilities, Addictive Time, and a Stratus Dancer. The only cards that, to me, that seem viable in this matchup are the 2 copies of Anger of the Gods, which seem great, and possibly the 1 copy of Stratus Dancer or the 2 copies of Negate.
Players will shuffle up here for game number 2. Chuck Bowman will be on the play. See if he can get a little more aggressive with this red deck. If you ever want to watch any of the matches from this particular tournament or any of the previous ones, like last weekend where Oliver Tomiko, the 14-year-old prodigy, got the job done in Providence, this is where you're going to want to go, our YouTube page.
There's a lot of good stuff going on at youtube.com/StarCityGames video. Not only are all the opens and invitationals and so forth archived there, so if you ever want to go back and look at old matches, your own or your friends or just ones you remember, they're all there. On top of that, there's some exclusive content to the YouTube page. For example, the unboxings, those just go up on the YouTube page. Also, there's old Versus Series articles, premium archives as well. I think a lot of people are under the perception that the premium articles are under a permanent pay firewall. That's not the case. After 30 days, they're all available on the archives page there as well. So become a subscriber at youtube.com/StarCityGames video and check out all that content because there's a lot of cool stuff going on there all the time, both relatively new stuff and a lot of old stuff that's cool to catch up on.
You see some fun Versus videos. Tom Ross, now a member of the Versus video circuit as well. So if you guys did not see that, Brad Nelson and Tom Ross did their first Versus video together. And we'll have Tom weekly on Versus videos on Star City Games Premium side. And those eventually will be uploaded to the YouTube page as well, youtube.com/StarCityGames video to check out all the sweet stuff we are doing over there. The bosses, it's going to be fun to see the Boston Versus videos. The reserved Tom Ross against the very loud Brad Nelson and ridiculous Todd Anderson.
Yeah, Tom Ross and his Bayou twang.
Yeah. Because the Versus videos obviously is playtesting, but it's also some personality as well. And I hope that Tom maybe takes like the quiet, just kick the crap out of your approach the entire time while Tom's being a goofball or Brad's being ridiculous.
Brad and Todd are very gregarious, extroverted, loud, noticeable personalities. Tom is a little bit more subtle,
to say the least.
I would say.
BBD with his stupid puns.
Yeah, BBD, kind of a jokester.
Tom will swat those away while burning him alive with roast and everything else in his red deck.
Probably just ignore most of them, like they weren't even said.
Yes.
So a good study in contrast. I like having a diverse personality portfolio with things like that kind of content.
I am really looking forward to seeing how it will evolve.
No cookie cutter personalities there.
I don't think Chuck has any lands. Yeah, that's a quick mulligan. Did not find what he was looking for at all. We'll see if Harlan finds 7 cards that he is happy with.
Atarka's Command is an interesting card for me in matchups like this because my instincts as a player is cards like Skullcrack, you generally want to cut them in matchups where your opponent can interact. You need more threats in those kind of matchups. But Atarka's Command may be so powerful in this deck that you keep it in even in matchups where, you know, your theoretical Magic player would tell you, well, you're supposed to cut it.
Yeah.
I have not seen enough of the deck in action yet to say conclusively, but Charles still has it in his deck, even though Harlan is most likely siding into removal and sweepers, things you think would take a lot of the wind out of the sails of Atarka's Command, but the card might just be so good in the deck that you don't cut it.
I think it is one of those cards that's so good in the deck, it's pretty difficult to cut, or maybe you trim, but you can't cut them all, because the draws and the games that come together with Atarka's Command, they're just silly sometimes. They really are. It deals so much damage.
With Legacy Burn, back when I was playing that a couple of years ago, in matchups that went really, really long, like Miracles sometimes, I got it into my head that you're supposed to cut one copy of Fire Blast because you don't want to draw a bunch of them, and the game goes on for a really long time, and it's not something you can play efficiently early on in the game. And then the more I play, the more I realize Fire Blast is just too powerful to cut, and the Atarka's Command might be a similar philosophy here. Just too much damage.
Both players are going to take a look at 6 cards. He's got some lands this time. Looks like 2 of them. Temple of Abandon being one. Wooded Foothills being the other. Wooded Foothills, how Chuck will start things off. Gotta imagine the mountains coming. Become Immense still in the deck too. So this looks very reminiscent of the list that Martin Dang won the Pro Tour with.
I love one copy of Become Immense. Decks with one Delve spell in them, that's just great deck building.
Yeah,
Because the first one's basically a freebie,
Yep.
and that card's worth a ton of damage.
And also, no one's gonna play around it.
Nope.
Harlan will draw. He's got some temples to start off with. 3 Temple of Triumphs, I believe, in his hand. He also has an island over there. An Ochitai's commanded hand as well. I think I dig through time. His hand is slow. Temple, top card. Stays on top. I think it's a Wooded Foothills.
It's land number 3, and you can see his hand with Rabble Master and Whirling Outburst. No surprise that he wants it.
Harlan will draw. Stratus Dancer, maybe coming face up.
Face up!
We'll see. It's that or a Temple.
I think Harlan might have an out for that play just because he needs to play the land that comes into play tapped.
Sure.
I think people make a mistake of playing that card face down too often in decks like this. It is fine to just cast it if your hand's choked on 3-mana spells, which this deck often is.
Gonna leave it on top, pass the turn back. We'll see if Chuck tries to play around a card like Wild Slash this turn. He can get Rebel Master online right now if he'd like, or he can go the Whirling Outburst approach. The interesting thing about these red decks too is, you're playing against chess guys, so there are a lot of different cards you can get in your head that you have to worry about. Anger of the Gods, Arc Lightning, stuff like that. Are you supposed to try to play around any of that stuff, or just say, pedal to the metal, do it one way?
I like casting Whirling Outburst this turn. Just because it's still fine if I think it's better against Wild Slash and better against not Wild Slash. It's kind of better both ways, I
Sure.
feel like.
And Chuck's going to go with Whirling Outburst. 3 goblins, that means 3 triggers for Foundry Teat Denizen, which means 4 damage.
And
Harlan does not have Wild Slash.
The worst case scenario here for you is that Harlan has Anger of the Gods, and you'd rather fire back with Rabble Master than fire back with Whirling Outburst.
Sure. Is it Mantis Rider time? Looks like it might be. It could be a Stratus Dancer face down as well. Looks like it will be.
You're dead.
You said that pretty confidently. Yeah. There's a lightning strike. In for 4. Maybe. Yes. Coming on in. This game's getting real hard to win. Pass the turn back. I think Stoke the Flames at the ready. Wild Slash to draw. In we go. Ochitai's command.
Aha!
Gain 4, come on back. Don't see this one very often. Can't imagine Chuck was planning on playing around it either.
I mean, this is not the end of the world for Chuck. It's a little unexpected, and
Though I will say, Chuck's play this turn is really good.
Mm-hmm.
It would be so easy to just play Rabble Master pre-combat, and he would have been a beating then.
well, what are the cards that Harlan has in that spot? Almost certainly has a removal spell.
Yep.
And could have Ochitai's command. And casting the Rabble Master into either one of those cards is really, really bad.
Well, I think it's very unlikely that Ochitai's command is a card that's on Chuck's radar. Now, I don't want to say I'm not giving him credit. It's just a card that doesn't see a lot of play. Now, he could just run his Rebel Master into a lot of cards, as you did mention, though. Stoke, Strike, like a million things.
Exactly.
Here's Mantis, right? That's going to die.
If Harlan's hand is susceptible to Rabble Master in that spot, it's because his hand has literally nothing in it.
Yep.
So there's no reason to try to amplify that scenario.
Chuck's draw Swift Spear. He has Stoke the Flames in hand for the Mantis Rider, or he can save that and just go upstairs with it. He also has Rabble Master this turn as well, so we'll see how he wants to deploy everything at this point.
The question is just how much does he want to push into Anger of the Gods? I think that he can suspect at this point Harlan doesn't have it, though he could still certainly draw it. So now, do I need to deploy my entire hand to push through Manus Rider and possibly follow up removal spells, or can I leave a little bit left over so I have something to rebuild with in the event that I get hit with Anger of the Gods?
There's Swift Spear, trigger the Denizen. Rabble Master, try to trigger the Denizen. Goblin, trigger the Denizen.
Legacy players.
Stoke the Flames, kill that. Beat downs, trigger Prowess. It's a healthy amount of damage here. Now, this is you moving all in, and if Anger of the God shows up, he might end up losing.
And now I'm intrigued because it's possible Chuck could have basically just made a big alpha strike, lose something inside of combat, and leave the Stoke left over. Because if it's Anger of the Gods or bust, then there's not a lot to be gained by killing the Manus Rider.
Agreed. Harlan down to 4. Shivan Reef.
Now, there's other risk if you leave the Manus Rider in play. For example, if Harlan still has the Jeskai Charms in his deck, maybe he's untapping and gaining some life, and that could be problematic, but I'm not sure if it was necessary for Chuck to use Stoke the Flames on the Manus Rider.
Chuck can untap and draw. Harlan with the Stoke the Flames in hand. Manic Influence the draw. Look at a Goblin token, that'll trigger the Denizen. Everybody coming on in. Chuck Bowman's going to win game number 2 here against Harlan Fear. Atarka Red, Jesco Aggro heading to a 3rd game. Important here for Harlan, however, he was able to win game number 1, which means he's on the play for game number 3.
Very, very important.
Because this deck gets off to some relatively slow starts with all those temples and Mystic Monastery. He does have ways to interact a little bit earlier with Stratus Dancer, Wild Slash, Lightning Strike, things like that, but you know, being on the play is a huge difference here.
His deck had a lot of interaction on the play game 1. He had multiple copies of Wild Slash, one in his opening hand that he was able to use on the second turn of the game. He picked another one later on, and he was still almost a little too slow, even with one of his faster responding hands. So I agree being on the play is a huge deal, and there's a lot of pressure on Harlan to find his early interaction or Anger of the Gods. I think that he can afford to keep a hand that doesn't do anything until the 3rd turn if it's backed up by Anger of the Gods. But if he keeps a hand that can't interact on the first 2 turns of the game, it's very risky.
Well, we're going to see what kind of hand he's able to keep for game number 3. We'll talk very quickly about the Star City Games IQ kind of circuit that we have. Stores can run these. We obviously run these in the Open Series, as Joe Lissette and Kevin Jones are currently playing in Premier IQs. You can get them at your stores right now.
Yeah, we talk a lot about the IQ circuit as it pertains to the Open Series event, and we have 2 of them every Sunday at our Opens. But we have levels of organized play for the IQ circuit that can be had at local stores, from smaller IQs all the way up to the 5K Premier IQs that we have at these Open Series. And all the prize kits come with play mats, dice bags, creature collection pins, top 8 pins, SCG premium vouchers. Some of the stuff is given out to all the participants, and some of it is top 8 exclusive. And you can always find out more information at starcitygames.com/IQ.
All this sweet stuff, brand new playmat, that dragon chasing that angel. I'm rooting for the dragon.
It's a good matchup,
personally.
typically.
Yeah. And then it's just a little Squirtle just hanging out, the Eternal Witness. Big fan. IQs are sweet. Playing them sometimes when I'm home in Seattle.
I really enjoy the fact that it's organized play where you can sort of make it whatever you want it to be. If you just want to play in some local standard events or whatever the format happens to be, and there's cash prizes and all the stuff you see on the screen, that's great, and that could be the level you engage with it. If you want to qualify for the Invitational, it's a great path for that. And for a lot of the people who compete in the Open Series regularly, certainly players like Kevin Jones, Anthony Lowry, a lot of their the 2 buys that they have, their participation in the Players' Championship has to do with playing in the IQ. So you can make them as important to you or as trivial to you as you want them to be, which is very nice.
I'm about to have a conversation with Harlan, I think, after this match, win or lose. Is he a Steelers jersey I'm not particularly fond of here? Just not quite sure. I didn't know if he's from Pittsburgh or not, or just a Steelers fan.
I know he's tight with Kevin Jones. They hang out.
Yeah, he's in,
but I don't know for sure.
He's in hostile territory to wear that sort of clothing.
I know. That seems intentional.
That's all. It really does. It really does. And Jeff, you see Jeff Hogan behind him? He had a tweet on social media that was dissing Cleveland yesterday. These gentlemen need to understand.
As someone from New Jersey, I'm a big fan of saying, what's so special about where you're from?
Yeah.
And the answer is there's nothing special about where anyone's from.
That's right. So I'm just
So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear any of the beats.
no beats. I don't give beats on where you're from or where anyone's from.
Right.
New Jersey's trash, but that's not a beat. That's just a fact.
Unless you just enjoy high employment, good education, I don't know, just empirically the best place to live,
No
good
real
medical care.
No real selling points yet. Harlan Sand is pretty good.
If you care about the things that adults care about, then
Yeah, because I would classify myself as an adult. that's the first word I think of. He has a Soulfire Grandmaster, a Jeskai Charm. It looks like only one Temple, which is nice. Start the game with a Temple and then some lands that enter the battlefield untap. Chuck gonna take a mulligan. Grandmaster, really good in this matchup for obvious reasons. It needs to be killed immediately.
yeah, it's a boom bust card. It does contribute to some of the tempo issues with the matchup because it does get swallowed up by Wild Slash and so forth, and those exchanges are really bad. But left unchecked, it's game over.
Chuck is now mulliganing 2-5. That hand did not have any lands either. It's going to have to be a pretty good 5. I see a Whirling Outburst. I think it might be a one-lander. And he's going to keep. There's a Temple. Take a look at that top card. It's going to become the bottom card. Chuck will draw. It's a mountain.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Does he have a one draw?
I'm looking for Sean O'Brien.
Harlan will draw.
Sean
Another copy of Soulfire
O'Brien.
Grandmaster.
If you are
It's a good place to start.
report to
Chuck
the
will draw.
stage,
It's a
please.
copy of Atarka's Command.
And the issues with Tarka's Command definitely get magnified when Chuck is on a 5-card hand.
Yeah.
Because he needs threats or things to kill Harlan's threats. He needs to be able to interact. And Tarka's Command is kind of predicated on the game looking a certain way. Chuck having the advantage, having more of a board, and it's going to be very hard for him to do on 5 cards.
Forest is the weapon of choice here for Bowman. Perhaps a lightning strike is in order. Some way to get this thing off of the table. Yep, that'll work just fine. It's actually a twin bolt. Shivan Reef the draw. Temple of Epiphany the play. A little scry action here for Harlan. Leave that card on top. Another Grandmaster, put you to the test. Chuck will draw. Void Foothills, play and sacrifice. We'll see what the follow-up will be. I know there's a Whirling Outburst hanging out over there.
Seems like the play. Unless he has a kill spell for the Grandmaster, maybe he wants to take another turn off.
He does have a kill spell in Lightning Strike. Looks like he's just going to use that to get that off the table. Pass the turn back. Dig through time to draw.
And Dig Through Time is a great draw for Harlan here because it looks like Chuck's plan is, as much as possible, to just fend off Harlan's action, uses removal spells to keep Harlan from getting anything going. That slows down the game, that puts cards in Harlan's graveyard, and that bodes well for Dig Through Time's impact.
This isn't a bad draw. I mean, land number 4 for a red deck, typically not great, but the ability to play Whirling Outburst and Stoke the Flames in the same turn isn't bad.
I mean, at this point, you know, Chuck can cast the Whirling Outburst, use the soak on the Mantis Rider, and if he draws very well for the rest of the game, you know, he's in it. I don't think he can afford another land, for example.
Yeah.
But if he draws good spells for the remainder of the game with the Atarka's Command in his hand, he could get back into this.
And pass the turn back. Take a draw. Anger of the Gods.
We're now taking times for today's modern challenge that starts at 3 o'clock.
In we go. Looks like 3 is going to be dealt.
I'm curious what Chuck's incentive here is to wait on the Stoke the Flames.
As am I.
I felt like he would have been well served to do it last turn because there's a reasonable chance Harlan has something like Negate in his sideboard.
Valor stance.
Yeah.
Maybe.
A lot of things.
I don't know if that would be in his deck after sideboard, but
There's things that can go wrong.
well, he's going to hold steady.
And with Harlan at 19, it doesn't feel like burn range is really on the table.
Stoke mounts in a Tarkus command here in Chuck's hand. There's a mountain. Pass the turn back. Now it's a little more confusing. Because he's not able to get through damage now.
Yeah.
Here's Stoke the Flames going upstairs. You're going to have Stoke on this, yep.
If Chuck waited for Harlan to tap out of respect for a counterspell to take care of the Mantis Rider, to me that implies he should have done that the previous turn.
Yep.
After he played his Whirling Outburst.
Outburst Stoke in the same turn. Kill your guy, pass the turn back.
Doesn't quite line up.
Here's Anger of the Gods. It's going to take care of all the Goblin tokens. Bowman will draw. It's another land. Yeah, flooding out pretty bad here. Mulligan to 5 is hard enough, but when you draw 6 lands, it's pretty tough to
Yeah,
win.
this is not a deck that plays well with 6 lands.
Mantis Rider to draw here for fear. Has Goblin Rebel Master too, so he can figure out which threat he wants to play. He can also just say, take the turn off, cast Dig Through Time. His life total's so high at 19, he can play this game a couple different ways.
With Jeskai Charm in hand, I'm looking to close this one out as soon as possible.
Sure. Here's a Goblin token in for 1. Bowman going to go down to 7 and draw a card. I believe another copy of a Tarkus command.
Yes. Well, he can put the land into play with it. It's pretty good.
You are right. Yes, you are. You are. He can't do that. Harlan Fear is going to win this match here over Chuck Bowman. 2-1. Jeskai Aggro will take care of Atarka Red. Harlan is 11-3. Don't know if he's going to be able to draw in or not. Might be a win in the next round for our former Standard Open champion during Season 4 of Richmond.
He had great tiebreakers.
Yep.
I mean, he was in, I believe, 7th place coming in the round, so a reasonable shot at it. We'll have to see